Some stories are true crime, some are paranormal. But here, you won't just hear them, you'll live them. Put on your headphones. Welcome to what lurks in the shadows. You're not supposed to find a person this way, not standing, not waiting. When searchers finally found something months after Charles disappeared, it was deep in the forest. Quiet, cold, and the kind of stillness that means you're far from anyone else. What they found didn't look like a person. A pair of jeans stood upright in a narrow gap between two fallen trees, the fabric stiff from months of snow and rain. The belt was still looped through the waistband, hanging loose. Inside the legs, the socks were pulled up neatly. Inside those, the small bones of his feet still in place. Above the waistline, there was almost nothing left. No torso, no arms. A few ribs scattered in brush, part of a shin bone a few feet away. The rest had been taken by weather, decay, and animals that don't care about answers. We'll come back to those jeans, because that's where everything ends. But first, we must go backward, back before the missing posters, before the grids and the maps, before Charles's parents packed the car for the hardest drive of their lives, back to when he was just a young man with a camera, a new winter, and the kind of confidence that makes you think nothing bad can happen to you. They mark the spot with orange flagging and step back. No one talks. The forest stays quiet until the wind pushes through the trees like someone testing a locked door. It isn't snowing now, but you can picture how a storm moves here, fast, sideways, unforgiving. The ranger's map shows Bybee Creek drainage. The GPS flickers, losing satellites every few seconds. They note the coordinates, they note the snow line. They note the creek braiding through deadfall that hides holes big enough to take a leg and keep it, while the night decides the rest. You're 20. Some will say 19. Memory rounds edges like that. You feel older than your license says. Virginia feels small. Streets that loop back, skies that don't change. The West feels like a door that opens. The mountains, the air, the silence you can't get back home. So, you pack light, a camera, a backpack, a few rolls of film. You tell your parents not to worry. You'll call. You'll be careful. You mean it. You believe careful is enough. That bad things happen to people who make mistakes. And you won't. You're young, confident. The world still feels like it's waiting for you to arrive. January 1975. Eugene is wet and gray, the kind that swaps one shade for another and calls it daylight. You're sleeping on a friend's couch, picking up odd jobs, wondering where to point the camera next. Someone says, "You ever been up to Crater Lake?" They talk about it like it's not real, the blue that looks impossible, the snow stacked high against the pines. You see it already, dark trees, white ground, the clean line where they meet. a perfect shot waiting. You call home. A few days. Back by Monday. Love you. They say be careful. You say you will. You mean it. You pack simple food, a decent jacket, a sleeping bag that's seen better days. Your boots aren't new, but they're yours. The camera goes in last, always does. The map looks like a dare. Thin lines climbing into the Cascades. You aren't planning anything reckless. You want a photograph so clean it almost hurts to look at. Your ride drops you near the park. You set small goals, just to the gate, just to the rim, just past the sign that says, road closed beyond this point in winter. You tell yourself it's fine to keep walking. Rules are general. You are particular. The snow holds your weight until it doesn't. One step solid, next step a hollow whoomp, and your leg sinks to the knee. The first time you laugh. The second time you don't. You keep the camera inside your jacket so the cold doesn't kill it. You can already see the frame, dark pines, white bowl of the caldera, sky like glass. Back home, they'll ask if the water really looks like that. But weather changes the way people do, gradually and then all at once. What's documented is simple. Charles told friends he was going to Crater Lake for a weekend. He didn't come back when he promised. They reported him missing. In Virginia, his parents learned their son was overdue in a place they'd never seen. They packed the car and drove west. Every mile is a bargain with hope. The farther you go, the more you admit you might need to be there. Winter in the park doesn't forgive. Roads close. Trails hide under feet of snow. Wind moves sideways, filling tracks behind you. A person can walk an hour and leave nothing anyone can follow. Rangers searched while daylight and visibility allowed. They searched again when storms broke. They found impressions that could have been anything. Nothing that was definitely Charles. Searchers use a phrase, probability of area. You break the map into pieces. If he started here and did what most people do, where would he likely be? You go there, and there, and there again. Winter takes away your circles and gives you bigger ones. You're back on the snow. The sky is thin and colorless. Trees look like pencil outlines. You're sure the lake is just over that rise. You can feel colder air moving the way it does over big water. You think about turning back. You always think about turning back. Right before you don't, you do the math. How long you've walked versus daylight left. 20 more minutes. The snow shifts under you. solid than not. You find the road again by the sound of hardpack under drift. You step off for a better angle. You'll step back in a minute. Wind knifes through a gap you didn't see on the map. It steals heat from your face and hands. Your fingers fight the glove. This is fine. You're young. You're strong. This is the story you came to star in. You don't know fatigue changes decision making before you feel tired. Cold makes thoughts smaller. You focus on immediate problems. Where to step, keeping snow out of your boot, settling your breathing so air doesn't feel like it has edges. You rehearse the photo like a promise. You keep going. His parents stand in a ranger office and learn the practical language of this place. They learn the difference between search and recovery without anyone saying it aloud. They learn how a winter pack looks when it's used for shelter and how wind tears it until it looks like trash. You're losing heat faster than you can make it. You don't frame it that way. You frame it as, just need to warm up, just need a windbreak, just need to keep moving. Your hands fumble zippers, the bootlace comes undone, retying takes 3 tries. You stand too fast and the horizon tilts. You wait for it to settle. You start making bargains. If I can get to that tree, if I can find the road, if I can just... The camera in your jacket feels heavier. You haven't taken a single photograph. Decomposition in alpine winter follows different rules. Cold slows bacterial action. Freeze-thaw works on tissue. Small scavengers take what they can carry. Large scavengers scatter the rest. What remains can look arranged when it's simply gravity and fabric. Jeans are durable. Synthetic blend socks hold shape. Leather belts loosen as tissue reduces. None of this is mysterious to forensic specialists. All of it looks impossible to families trying to understand how a person becomes a partial inventory. Rangers know this geography of loss. They've seen what a season does to things left behind. They don't use mysterious when environmental is more accurate, even when accurate feels insufficient. You find a dip out of the wind, a cluster of trees. You sit. Your body agrees so completely it feels like the first correct thing all day. You pull your jacket tight. You think about the photograph you'll take tomorrow when the light is better. You think about your parents. You think about being warm. The cold doesn't feel as bad now. That isn't improvement. That's surrender. But you don't know that either. March becomes April. Snow recedes in stages. What winter took, spring returns in pieces. A boot first, then fabric. The search grid tightens, probability becoming certainty. The team that finds him knows what they're looking at before they're close enough to confirm. They've done this before. They radio coordinates in careful language. The scene tells them what they expected. No signs of violence, no evidence of panic. Just the quiet story of someone who went too far on a day that didn't forgive it. Your parents don't get a day after. They get all the days that follow. The call, the flight, standing beside rangers who point to a map and say, "Here." They replay his promises. Back by Monday, I'll be careful. They hear them at night, fresh enough to answer back. They look through his photographs. Winter light on a building, a road with telephone poles leaning into distance, friends whose names they now know by first name only, forever. They wonder if you were scared, if you knew, whether the last thing you thought about was a person, a promise, or the blue shape of the lake you came to see. Authorities found no evidence of foul play, no second party. They found what winter leaves after months of work. The file reads, presumed exposure, probable hypothermia. It contains measurements and dates. What it doesn't contain is closure. That's not something you can file. The file ends neatly, but the story around it doesn't. Investigators worked through every angle they could think of. Nothing pointed to another person. No extra tracks, no struggle, no gear that wasn't his. The simplest explanation stayed the hardest to accept. He walked too far into a place that didn't care how careful he was. Most agreed he died of exposure. At elevation, weather turns fast. Clear sky to whiteout in minutes. Disorientation narrows thinking. Hypothermia quiets panic until the body feels warm just before it fails. It matched the scene. No tent, no fire, no flight. Shelter chosen, body overtaken by cold. Some rangers believed he found cover, a tree well, a drift, a low pocket that looked safe until layers collapsed above him. When spring opened the depression, what remained stood where he once knelt, jeans holding shape, socks cupping bones. Others pointed to scavenger and environmental movement. Freeze-thaw stiffens fabric, loosens leather, the body contracts and separates. Small animals take soft tissue first, larger animals drag what's left. Gravity and time do the rest until the scene looks arranged when it isn't. Still, not everyone accepted the ordinary, the state of the remains, the upright jeans, socks intact, no torso, no skull, looked staged to people who had never seen winter's work. Crater Lake's terrain invites gaps, ridges, creeks, snow bridges that collapse without warning. Some believe he fell into a drainage and was moved by meltwater or animals, explaining why only part was found. Others argue the scene felt too orderly, as if someone or something had repositioned him. No evidence ever supported that. No tracks, no tool marks, no motive. For some, the image is enough. The jeans standing where a person once did. For those who worked the case, it's proof that nature can look supernatural when we don't understand every step between life and discovery. In the end, truth likely sits between reason and imagination, a simple tragedy wrapped in the shape of a riddle. A young man lost in deep snow. A body changed by time and weather until it looked like something else. When the snow finally pulled back, the forest gave up what it was willing to. The jeans were still there, standing in a narrow break between trees, as if waiting for someone who never came back. Searchers logged the coordinates, gathered what they could, and carried it down the mountain. The rest stayed where it had fallen, half buried in the melt, folded back into the land. Seasons turned, snow came again. Trees fell, grew, and fell again. Hikers still walk that stretch without knowing the story under their feet. The report called it probable hypothermia. The file was closed. But time doesn't seal things the way paperwork does. Sometimes, when the forest goes still enough to hear the air shift, it's easy to imagine him there. The quiet, the cold, the sense that something just beyond sight is waiting. Time covered the evidence, but not the feeling that something out there was waiting for him, and still might be. Follow What Lurks in the Shadows on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.